everybody. Today I thought that I would talk to you about one of my favorite plant families, the Peperomia plants. And one of the reasons why I like these plants is because they are safe for pets. Obviously, you wouldn't want to feed your pets the plants, but it's okay if, like this one, they get into them or maybe a little curious. So she's free to go now. But Peperomia plants are pretty cool. I started getting into them a couple of months ago. I have a total of 6, and some of them are really easy to find. Um, they're generally pretty easy to take care of. So they're also known as radiator plants. That should tell you a little bit about the care that they like. They don't like to be too wet. You can let them dry out in between waterings. But with that said, they also appreciate a fair amount of humidity. And some people will put them in terrariums. So it really depends on what variety you find and what your own personal home is like. But there's so many different kinds of these plants. They're really known for their foliage. They do have some small flowers, which I think are kind of cool looking, but they're not really, flowers as you normally think about them. So they're really known for their leaves. They are sort of succulent-like. So again, you don't have to water them very often. The leaves tend to hang on to a little bit of water, so I usually let mine dry out almost completely. And lately I've been trying to water from the bottom. Some people in the plant world will call that butt chugging, but I won't refer to it as that. So I will actually just put water in the tray. I'm just kind of experimenting to see if they like it. I've heard that the foliage doesn't really like to get wet, and it can be hard because the plants are kind of full. So I've been trying to go from the bottom up, but we'll see. They have a pretty small root system, so you don't need to repot them often. Some of them are kind of slow growing, some of them are fast growing. It really, again, depends on the variety, and I've heard that there's over 1,000 varieties. Usually you want to keep them in sort of medium light. I have some in a north-facing window, directly in the window, so there is a fair amount of light. They don't like to be in bright light or bright direct light that they can actually burn. They can do okay in low light situations, but they might not grow as much and they might not flower. I have I have 6 different kinds of peperomias. I have 2 trailing plants. I have 2 upright plants. So I find the trailing ones to be really great for a hanging basket, and I find the upright ones to be really good. If I move them around or I'm having friends over or something, they'll grow upright and they look pretty good in their containers. So I think those are all of my care tips for you. Generally what I've read about peperomia plants is that if you're comfortable in your house environment, the plants will be happy. So here we go. So I think I'll probably show you my 2 trailing peperomias first. And please excuse my pronunciation. So this is a Peperomia Hof or Isabella plant. And this one I've had for a couple of years. I bought it at Home Depot. It still has the price tag on. It was $15. I had no idea what I was buying, and this could very well have been my first Peperomia plant. But I really liked the long green vines. It's grown a fair amount. I don't really remember what it looked like when I bought it, but I do know that it's growing. So this one has these little round leaves. They sort of, when they grow at the tips, you can see that there's almost like a little rosette at the bottom. There's no variegation on this plant. I did take a couple of cuttings of it. I think I gave them to my mother. They were easy to root. So this is a pretty easy care plant. One thing that I've noticed is that, you can see that there's a couple of strands that are dry, and, every once in a while I go through them and pick them off. This one is in a west-facing window. It's sort of a weird situation, so I have a window that goes into my sunroom, so it's not really in bright light. But this one seems to be pretty happy. I water it with my other plants, not a whole lot, and seems to be pretty good. The cat doesn't mess with it too much, but I really like the way that this one looks. And one thing I will say about this is even though I bought it at a big box store, I really haven't seen it anywhere else. So if you see it, you might want to pick it up. This is not a plant that I think about too often. So that usually means it's pretty easy to care for, and I haven't killed it. So there's one. Now this one I actually just got a couple of weeks ago. And this one, I saw it at Home Depot, and I actually kind of stopped in my tracks. I don't know why. I mean, it's not really that special, but I really love variegated plants. This one I think I just had never seen before. And I said, well, it really looks like a philodendron with the heart-shaped leaves, or a pothos. But the leaves are thick. They don't feel like either of those two other varieties. So, of course, I brought it home. And I took to one of my Facebook plant groups, and within an hour we had it identified. And I forget the actual name for it, but it goes by Cupid Peperomia. So, people call it that because of these adorable little heart-shaped leaves that are sort of ringed with this white variegation. And I guess that sometimes, if you can look really closely, you can see some pink on the stems, and that goes along with the Cupid name. So Cupid Peperomia. And so I've only had this one for a couple of weeks. When I got it, it was super waterlogged. So I'm kind of using that as an explanation as to why there's some brown spots on the leaves. But what I have read is that it's really easy to care for. It grows super fast. You can have it in low light. Again, probably not high light, but medium light too, and it will vine. It's easy to root. So this plant is really right up my alley. Oh, and I also read that some of the newer growth will not be variegated. It really depends on where you have it. So it looks like those are some newer leaves. But this one has definitely dried out a bit. I've been watering it sort of sparingly. And it looks healthy. It feels healthy. I might clean it up a little, pull off some of the black spotted leaves. But this one, like I said, I saw it and I stopped in my tracks and proudly carried it up to the front. And then I spent $17 on it. So that's another one. So those are my two trailing peperomia plants. I really like trailing plants. I'm running out of windows to put them in, but I like the shape of them. But the next ones I'll show you are really cool too. So this one is a Peperomia Rosso plant, and I bought this at my little nursery that's about 20 minutes away. And I didn't know what it was called at first. It was just marked as Peperomia, but of course I took to the domain and I looked it up. But I really loved the dark veined leaves. They're really, really glossy and pretty. I liked the red coloration on the bottom, and then it also had some of these are the flowers. So I think that they're kind of cool. They had some shape to it, but they're not really anything special. I also really like dahlias. So, these are not like dahlia flowers, but they're pretty cool. I'll take any flower I can get. So this one, I guess I actually did repot it. But so I have it in this cool little marble terracotta planter that are very cheap, but not necessarily easy to find. I buy them at that garden center. But so it seems to be doing pretty well. It does dry out. The window that I have them in is right near a heat register. So I do kind of take care. I mean, even though you don't water them frequently, I do kind of take care to make sure that they're not too dry because they are right on top of a heat vent. So, and some of the leaves get a little bit crispy, but I just pull them off. And I think I've had this plant for about maybe 2 months or so, and it has been putting out some new growth in the middle, and it is flowering, so that means it's at least getting enough light. So, so that's Peperomia Rosso. Another one that I bought at the same time as the Peperomia Rosso was this Peperomia Hope. And this plant I really like. If you have any free time, Google it and see what type of specimens people have. But when this one gets a little bigger, it's sort of, it's very imperfect. It doesn't really trail, but it kind of reaches all over the place. But these have like sort of little coin-shaped leaves with sort of some faint veining, although they feel pretty smooth to the touch. This one doesn't have any flowers, but, the care is the same as the other ones. But, again, I really like the look of the mature specimens when they're sort of just like reaching all over the place and a little crazy. One thing I learned from another YouTuber is that this is called a basalt terracotta planter. And so these are another thing that I really like. Again, they're not that expensive, but you can't find them everywhere. So I think I paid like maybe $2 for this little pot. And I have a lot of them scattered around. And the Peperomias seem to like it. But so this is Peperomia Hope. Now this one, after I bought those two, I said I gotta have more. And so I think I saw this online, a picture or something, but this is a Peperomia Silver Ripple. And this, as you can see, it's much different. It's bigger. This looks a little bit more like some of the, what do they call them? Money plants? I don't know. But, with the long stems, the big sort of coin-shaped leaves. But I really like the rippling. And if you look close, you can see some sort of like silvery, shimmery coloration on the leaves. I guess that this one also comes in a red color. I do not have that one. Maybe someday I will. But the care is pretty much similar to the other one. This one is much easier to water on the soil. But I think I have been bottom watering it. I don't know. I think it just depends on how I feel that day. So, and they're all actually due for a little bit of a water too. So I will probably do that later. But this one I really like. It seems to be happy. We'll see how it goes. The kitten is here messing with me, actually, but she's looking at the plants. So this is my most recent one. This is a Peperomia Rainbow Ginny. Rainbow. So I bought this one this past weekend. I went to my favorite garden center where it's sort of euphoria inducing. But I was just looking around and I saw this one and I had to have it. Looks like maybe it's drying out a little bit over here. But this one I also have a little too close to the heater maybe. So after looking at it today, I might move it. But I was drawn to the leaves that are sort of ridged in this pink color and of course the variegation. And that's it. That's why I like it. So, again, just looking at it, I think it might be a little too close to the radiator, even though it is called a radiator plant. So I may move it. It probably doesn't have enough humidity. But this one, I haven't really seen them before, and now I'm an owner. So I'm very happy about that. So those are the plants in my collection for now. I will probably get some more. We'll see. I'm trying to be responsible about buying plants. Another tip is I do have a humidifier sort of near that heat vent just because I know that it's not a great ideal spot for plants. Most plants appreciate some humidity. I usually keep that going. At least I will in the winter months. So another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is my wish list plants for the Peperomia family. And I would love to have a watermelon Peperomia. I don't know if you've seen them, but they do sort of have stripes like you would see on a watermelon. And I guess that's all I can think of off the top of my head. So, and I did want to show you one other thing. So over this past weekend, I adopted some plants from a friend. I have two friends who bought a house, and the owner that lived there before left some plants behind, and they're doing renovations and they just didn't really want to care for the plants. So I picked a few, and I did pick up this orchid, and wish me luck. I don't always have good luck with orchids, but I think now I know a little bit more about them. But it's a pretty mature plant here. It was in the container that you would buy from a big box store, and it was super, super, super waterlogged. And I guess from what I've learned on the internet that it was full of sphagnum moss, the root system, and I think it was just too wet. The roots weren't able to breathe, and that's why the roots are coming out up here. But I took it out. I took all the moss off. I rinsed the roots. The roots that were remaining actually look pretty healthy, although most of them are up here. And I put it in this orchid soil or bark that I just happened to have lying around. And I put it in this terracotta planter. I have no idea what variety it is, but wish me luck. I think in the past maybe I've watered the orchids too much, or Maybe they didn't have good drainage. I can't remember ever taking my orchids out of the pots that they came in. So now that I know what I know, they do appreciate generally being pretty dry with just a little bit of watering, although the ice cube trick is usually not necessary. So wish me luck with that one. I'll keep you updated. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any wish list peperomia plants, or do you have any care tips for them? And what are your favorite varieties? Bye now.